Willkommen bei der Swiss Traders Schlag den Dax Show mit Nachmittagstrading. Da Live-Trading und hatte die Best Day Trader Website, einen Kanal, aber hält sie auf dem Laufenden. Disclaimer, es findet keinerlei Anlageberatung statt. Ja, ich habe jetzt etwa seit 11 Uhr nicht mehr getradet und habe das auf dem Handy gesehen, dass es massiv ansteigt, über 200. Da habe ich das Handy hervorgekramt geschaut und bin da an einen Knopf gekommen und habe direkt geschortet. Und ja, jetzt muss ich hedgen. Sehr unerwartet, dass es da so massiv steigt, aber eben, das ist bei News, buy the rumor und sell the facts. Schauen wir mal, ob um 2:15 da das kommt, sell the facts. Ja, wir sehen da, DAX steigt da fast mehr als die US-Indizes. Muss ich schauen, ob das schon aktuell ist, weil ich da das ist irgendetwas. Ja, jetzt ist es aktiv. Jones geht dann eigentlich nicht mehr hoch, aber ist vorhin gestiegen. DXY sinkt jetzt leicht und ja. Ja, beide Rumors, Sell the Facts mal als erstes. Also muss ich jetzt also noch gar nichts machen, weil ich bin da fälschlicherweise schon reingegangen. Ja, ich hedge jetzt einfach. Es ist jetzt ja schon um 20 Punkte gestiegen. Der DXY fällt, DXY war sehr hoch, fällt jetzt aufs Vortageshoch zurück. So, ich bin jetzt wieder genau gehatcht. Ja, jetzt muss ich mal schauen, ob ich da irgendwo das live finde. Ja, ich mache das auf dem Notebook. Oder irgendwas. Ich weiß es nicht, zum Beispiel, ich habe vorhin gesehen, Meyer Barak sendet live. Ich kenne ihn nicht, ich habe früher mit seinen Streams gar nichts anfangen können, aber das ist schon sehr viele Jahre her. Ja, wir steigen immer noch. Also da nichts mit Short machen. Ja, jetzt hofft ja, da weiden viele Trader auf der Wiese der Hoffnung und sie erwarten, dass Powell's Speech, schon ob ich das irgendwie bekomme, vorletzten Mittwoch, also am Mittwoch, wo Powell gesprochen hat. Das letzte Mal habe ich ihn eben nicht gehört, vorletztes Mal, wo die Kurse so wo die Kurse so zusammengebrochen sind. Da hat er mehrmals gesagt, dass das wichtigste Ziel die Preisstabilität sei. Power Speech Today. Ja, Twitter. Ja, mal auf YouTube schauen. Ich gehe mal ganz raus. Ja, bei Bloomberg kommt ja meistens nichts.
Ist noch einfacher und schneller die Krankenversicherung, die zu dir passt. Berechne deine Prämien in weniger als einer Minute.
Probability that the Fed can stay on hold all year, but there's also a probability that you get a recession. And in a recession, we know that the Fed cuts very quickly. So I actually think that there is justification for the market to be pricing.
Ja, jetzt einfach mal warten.
And then when I think more broadly about what the Fed funds futures curve looks like, it actually shows that a Fed that isn't going to cut rates below, let's just say 375 for the next 10 years.
Ja, ich schaue jetzt einfach mal Bloomberg, aber da ja mal sicherheitshalber noch weitersuchen. CNBC. Ja, leider, der CNBC ist schlecht auf YouTube. Früher, als ich noch den Satellit hatte, ging das sehr gut. Ja, schwierig zu finden. Ja, ich bleibe mal bei Bloomberg. Bloomberg ist eben gut auf YouTube aber hast einfach die ganze Zeit nur Reklame.
Very uncertain time, and they don't know what they're going to do yet. And so all this gyration that we're seeing in the markets doesn't mean very much to them. There is one point that is also addresses both of those, and that would be Deutsche Bank's Henry Allen noting that this is about the 7th time now since the Fed started raising rates last year that the bond market has pivoted in its expectations of the Fed. And this time it's because they're thinking, well, we've gone down and now that's going to loosen financial conditions and that's going to make the Fed's job harder. So do you want to be a goldfish or not? Maybe not. The Fed is going to be looking at all of these data points coming up, and they're going to look at the longer run horizon more than 10 seconds. So it's a long way of saying maybe we don't want to worry too much about what the bond market
Es gibt einen von der Federal Reserve, der Stream.
On this program yesterday, talked about how quickly we've gone from the big bad wolf in the bond market to Goldilocks, just like that in a week. How quickly can this narrative, Daryl, flip back?
Boah,
Very quickly. I mean, the reality is that
gehen wir kurz ein wenig short, nur mit 0,1. Das kann man sehen, dass es wirklich einfach ist.
had to cover quickly when we broke through some technical levels last week. The
Lang.
equity market rally looks to us like it's a bear market rally and not something that's sustainable. Remember, the cause of last week's rally on both fixed income alongside the curve and the equities was a less than anticipated QRA.
Ja. Ja, Federal Reserve, die eigene Homepage von Federal Reserve, da hat man es original. Mal schauen, ob ich das hier... Das da. November 8, ja, das ist heute 9:15 Uhr. So. Ja, das wird neuerdings direkt übertragen. Ja, heute ist wirklich ein schöner Tag. Wahnsinnig, sagt er. Das Sonnenmodul bringt wie viel? Ah, noch 140 Watt. Trotzdem wenig. Ah nein, es ist halt jetzt schon relativ spät. Von der Ausrichtung von meinem Panel. Ja, also, was machen wir heute? Wir schauen, ob wir irgendetwas shorten können. Ich bin jetzt da mit 0,1 lang. Stopp, eng. Das ist die Musik vom von der Federal Reserve. Auch aufpassen, die Eröffnung ist dann gerade eine Viertelstunde später. Aber ich denke jetzt eben, wir haben da, das mal rüber, ja, gehen jetzt da raus. Wir haben da den Rumor und die Facts, die werden jetzt in 2 Minuten. Und wir müssen aber wirklich schauen, dass wir einen schönen Einstieg haben. Wir schauen auf den Renko. Ich muss da noch ein bisschen die Rollläden runterlassen, es hat zu viel Sonne. Vorsicht, da haben wir jetzt das erste, der Parabolic SAR geht runter. Das erste Anzeichen, aber wir gehen da noch nicht short. Es kann da auch wild hin und her schaukeln. DXY ist jetzt wieder aufs Vortageshoch runtergefallen. Solange DXY geht, müssen wir aufpassen, da kommt schon nichts rauf. Und ich schaue mal da, was brauche ich jetzt alles? Ja, der 15er. Die XY brauche ich eigentlich nicht. Den kann ich noch auf dem separaten Bildschirm anschauen. Machen wir da den M15 groß. Jetzt ist Viertel ab. Sollte jetzt 9:15 Uhr sein in den USA. Die US 30 am Vortageshoch, US 500. Auch am Vortageshoch, ja, extrem. Und da wird der Powell sicher, ich bin fast sicher, wird eins auf den Deckel geben. Wir sehen da nachher stürzende Kurs. Also jetzt mit dem Anstieg hätte ich jetzt nicht gerechnet. Ich könnte jetzt da wahrscheinlich eben im Bereich vom Stop-Loss, ja nein, noch nicht einmal, von meiner ursprünglichen ganz schnell noch mal führen holen. Ja, wer hätte das gedacht? Schau dir mal das an. Wir sind vorne. Es ist ein 5 Minuten Job, wir sind da unten gewesen und es saust einfach da unten. Wir wären eigentlich immer noch drin. Aber es ist gut, bin ich da wieder rausgegangen. Also es ist momentan extrem heikel. So, und jetzt kommt der Powell. Kommt er oder kommt er nicht? Ja, ich habe jetzt da gar nicht drauf getradet. Für mich sind wir jetzt schon zu weit gelaufen, also ich warte jetzt einfach einmal. Aber wichtig, man darf da nicht zu früh Short einsteigen, wenn es dann wirklich durchabkommt. Ja, wir gehen jetzt bei den USA über Vortageswoche. Ja, oh, beim Dax sind wir es schon lang. Über 15,194. Ja, das könnte eventuell ein schöner Short werden. Ui. Ja, ich habe dann eigentlich noch mit Short schön verdient. Aber ich bin natürlich dann rausgegangen. Ja, bis jetzt gar noch nichts. Und das, was ich jetzt interessant finde, wenn der Paul, oh, das muss ich abonnieren, kann man da eine Glocke? Ah, jetzt sieht man das Bild da. Ich denke, das darf ich da schon zeigen. Ja, und die Pressekonferenz wird dann auch immer interessant. Jetzt schauen wir, wie sich die Kurse verhalten.
Good morning, everyone. It's great to see so many faces that I know. We have current staff and alumni, people watching virtually, and this has been a great turnout, and I'm really looking forward to the rest of the day. So if you're just arriving today, you actually missed a lot because we have been here already celebrating for a couple of days. On Monday, we had a fantastic presentation by Jaime Marcus talking about the division's history, and that was followed by a great discussion that was kicked off by Beth Kaiser. And then yesterday, we hosted the world premiere of Janice Jack Marquez's video interviewing past and present staff, which was very entertaining and included some embarrassing before and after photos. And so, we've been having a great time. A highlight of the week so far for me is to hear all the funny stories that people are recounting. And I have to say, one of the biggest shocks for me was that Bill Washer has some funny stories that I've never heard. I've worked with Bill for 26 years, and I eat lunch with him almost every day. And apparently he's been holding out on me. So as much fun as Monday and Tuesday were, I'm really excited about today's conference. We have 2 terrific papers, we have 2 panel sessions, and a number of illustrious speakers, so I think it should be really good. Now my main job here this morning is to introduce Chair Powell. So you're all already familiar with his many accomplishments, his superlative communication, and if you know him at all, his clever wit. But I actually want to call out
einfach eine Rede, oder? Muss schauen. Aber trotzdem hat das einen Einfluss.
And genuine with his praise of the work that we do, and he's not shy about telling us if we've missed the mark, which is very important in a boss. But what truly endears him to the staff of R&S is that he really, really loves the nerdy details of the economy. He could be one of us. And so that's why we invited him to kick off our event today, even though if you look at the agenda, you will see he's the only one on the agenda who was never a member of R&S. But we made an exception and invited you to speak this morning, Jay. So without any more, I would like to welcome Chair Powell.
Thank you very much, Stacy, for your kind words and for the chance to be part of this wonderful celebration. Welcome to those who are here and also those listening remotely. It's great to be here honoring the Division of Research and Statistics today to celebrate the division's centennial. It's also humbling to see so many Fed people who served the institution over long and distinguished careers and have returned for this great occasion.
Ah,
Seeing
nein,
some
es
of
ist
you
Fed.
reminds me that the Fed is one of those
In
places
das
where you
Jubiläum
work
von der
for a
Fed.
decade or so and still feel like a newbie. You know who you are. So for those listening outside the room, I'll just very briefly outline research and statistics jobs and responsibilities. A large part of the division, along with other divisions of the Board of Governors, engage in producing what is called the Teal Book, which contains the staff's forecast for the U.S. economy, as well as a great deal of data and analysis on financial and economic issues. The Teal Book is delivered to the Federal Open Market Committee, or FOMC, before our regular meetings. Outside of the FOMC meeting cycle, RNS deploys its experts wherever they're needed across the Board of Governors, providing crucial inputs.
Bis jetzt passt noch nicht. Jetzt ist nur eine Einleitung. Wahrscheinlich geht es dir ab, wenn du es aufmachst.
RNS
In
is
7
also an
Minuten.
ongoing source of specialized information for policymakers. If board members have questions about even the most arcane workings of some aspect of the economy, and trust me, we very often do have questions, they can send an email and in no time be sitting down with some of the best informed experts.
Achtung, DXY
Most of the
steigt.
time, these are RNS economists. For example, during the pandemic, when questions arose about how the computer chip shortage was affecting auto production, or how businesses were responding to the backlog at U.S. ports, RNS gave detailed briefings on these novel subjects. Among its other activities, the Board of Governors is one of the world's most productive economic research institutions, and a large share of that work takes place inside RNS, supporting our mission of promoting a healthy economy and a strong and stable financial system. I've talked about research, let's talk about statistics. In addition to gathering data from many sources outside of the Federal Reserve, RNS is itself the source of some of the most important data on the economy and on the financial system. Our consumer credit data provide financial markets and
Wahnsinnig hoch.
with a vital indicator of the strength of
15,2 jetzt, das ist wieder dort,
Each
wo
month,
es am
the Industrial
Wochenende
Production
war.
Report gives us insights into how well certain sectors of the economy, especially in the manufacturing realm, are operating.
Jetzt einfach mal Mut machen. Wir warten, bis das drauf kommt. Weil jetzt ist es schon am Deckel.
A compendium of assets, liabilities, and transactions for segments of the economy. And every 3 years, RNS produces the well-known Survey of Consumer Finances, a premier source of detail and insights about how households are faring in the economy. The latest survey was published just last month. These and other data series produced by RNS amount to a significant public service. So I want to now focus in a little more detail on the U.S. economic forecast, which I would say is perhaps the most important of RNS's roles. And it's the aspect of RNS's work with which I most frequently engage. I think it's not an exaggeration to say that the U.S. economy baseline forecast produced by RNS, along with the simulations of a half a dozen plausible
Und wir
alternative
warten auf
paths
eine
to the
abgeschlossene rote
constitute
Viertelstundenkerze.
the largest part of the essential bedrock
Ja, wir warten auf eine
pursuit
rote
of our
abgeschlossene
economy.
Viertelstundenkerze.
Now, some people are just attracted to extremely challenging tasks, and the people of RNS are manifestly those people, having chosen just such a task in forecasting the path of the U.S. economy 8 times a year for FOMC meetings and then regular updates between meetings. They do this work on the biggest stage and with the highest stakes of any forecasters, knowing that the economy so very often surprises us. I've observed several qualities that are required to do this work well and that our RNS colleagues exemplify. And I'll start with intense commitment to the work, which requires pretty much, as I see it, everything you have to give. I think you have to love this work of forecasting to do it well. The job also requires integrity. Policymakers count on RNS to give us their best thinking, not shading the results for any reason. Regular forecasting also demands a systematic approach and a high degree of intellectual rigor. Ask Stacy and her colleagues to explain a certain aspect of the forecast. You'll find they have a clear explanation grounded in a rigorous framework. Of course, that intellectual rigor has to be combined with flexibility and agility. Economic models do a reasonably good job of capturing the working of the economy over past decades. Of course, even with state-of-the-art models, and even in relatively calm times, the economy frequently surprises us. But our economy is flexible and dynamic and is subject at times to unpredictable shocks, like a global financial crisis or a pandemic. At those times, forecasters have to think outside of the models. A dominant aspect of the future path of the economy is high uncertainty. That's so. This work also takes large doses of both courage and humility. And finally, judgment. Complement this rigorous process and these qualities, there has to be good judgment based on knowledge and experience. So, to close, to wrap up, perhaps the most important legacy of the past century for the Division of Research and Statistics.
2 Minuten geht der Markt auf. In 2 Minuten starten wir. Wir sind da immer noch am langen, weit über Vortageshoch DXY, immer noch rot. Ich muss wahrscheinlich warten auf eine rote Viertelstundenkerze.
So, on behalf of the board and the FOMC, thank you for that and hearty congratulations on your first 100 years of service to the public. Thank you.
100 Jahre ist das FOMC, keine Ahnung. Diese Institution 100 Jahre, aber was es genau ist, keine Ahnung. Ja, bis jetzt keine News, gar nichts.
Good morning, everyone. It's good to see you all. I am delighted and honored to be moderating this first panel today. I want to begin by thanking the Division of Research and Statistics, or put better, thanking the people of the Division of Research and Statistics. Here
Harvard
are
University,
and I'm
ja.
glad,
Research and
right there,
Statistik, Harvard,
I learned
ja, klar.
skills and perspectives that have been invaluable in everything I've done in my life since. I learned, of course, how
So,
to analyze
Achtung,
economic conditions,
50er.
think systematically about what might come next.
Ich versuche mal einen
I learned how to
Stoppsell.
write about economic
Wir haben den
conditions.
50er nicht überschritten.
I learned how to work
Ja.
as part of a team of people. I learned the importance of a commitment to excellence in one's work. And I learned about the immense rewards of public service. So as I look back on my own time in RNS at the board, I am so grateful to my managers, a number of whom are here today, to my colleagues,
R&S ist
today,
Research and
to everyone
Statistics
who helped to mentor me
von
and helped me in my path
Harvard.
in this work. And while I was here and learned all these professional skills, and also made many wonderful, wonderful friends. I think a few pictures of those occasions have flashed by before. And these friends have been friends for life as well. So a huge thank you from me to RNS. And that's all my introduction. Now we're going to turn to the topic for this first session. We have 3 authors next to me here, and you can read about them in the brochure. They're going to tell us about the role of
Ja,
RNS
Jones
over the
öffnet.
past 100 years. I'll turn things over right to
Ja,
them.
geht immer noch nach oben. Aber wir sehen da schon nervöse Zuckungen.
Thanks. It is great to be here. Wow, it is just so good to see so many people, and happy birthday, RNS. This is a big event. It is my pleasure to be
Also 100 Jahre
co-authored with Jeff
Research and
He's
Statistik
RNS
von
when I came in.
Harvard.
In fact, I think he interviewed me when I was on the job market.
Ich nehme an,
And then
da
with
alle
Gustavo, who I
Fett
worked with in my latter years
Chairs
here.
kommen von Harvard.
So this paper is about. If I can advance the slides. Advancing? Okay, there you go. We're going to look at the role of RNS research, basically as it pertains to Fed deliberations around monetary policy, financial stability, and regulatory issues. And we're going to look at how the role has evolved over time. As we were brainstorming this paper, we were thinking about the importance of research, and of course research is important because it informs policy decisions, but we also realize there are all these other spillovers. It pushes the staff towards greater rigor. It helps attract an excellent staff. And then to the extent that you're putting that publicly, it increases the credibility of the Fed by illuminating the science behind policy decisions. So the paper has 3 parts, and we're going to tag team the talk. I'm going to start with a brief overview of the history of research in RNS. Then Gustavo's going to take over and present some quantitative results, and Jeff is going to go last and talk about the role of research in related debates. So that's how we're going to organize things.
Ich glaube, jetzt kommt es wieder durch ab.
Yeah. Okay, so history in RNS. I'm going to start from the beginning. I will say it's not like there's a lot of data, particularly for the early decades of RNS. So what we did was we read the literature, we looked at personal accounts and oral histories, and we talked to people. And this is kind of where we came out. So I'll give you a brief overview, starting in the 1920s. So there was important economic thinking, and there was important data production in that decade. We're going to hear about the data production later, but with regard to the economic thinking,
Das ist die History
just sitting next to Athanasios Orphan
of research and
was telling me
statistics.
how the first director, Walter Stewart, really played this central role in what he calls the genesis of activist monetary policy. And then you have the 1930s, which of course were a tumultuous decade for the economy. This is a period when the research staff was building up. It's not clear from the historical record that the decision-making at the top really included a wide group of people from the research division. In terms of the 1940s, it was really war considerations that dominated the story. Monetary policy was not interesting because it was
Kommt da noch nicht richtig runter.
costs low for the US government. But the staff was engaged in a ton
Die XY fällt momentan.
both to help the board, but also to help other agencies in Washington. And then you had the 1950s with the Treasury Fed Accord, and you're back to kind of more normal monetary policy. The record suggests that Chair Martin was very supportive of the research division. Not clear how much role research was playing in forming monetary policy decisions. It looks more like Martin was turning to people in the
Jetzt kommt es wieder rauf.
It was really in the 60s and 70s when you started to see this big step up in the sophistication
Wenn es
of RNS.
über 50 kommt, dann müssen wir hatchen, aber momentan kommt das nicht rüber.
A response to pressure from the outside. So the Fed was getting criticized for not having enough science behind monetary policy from people like Brunner and Meltzer, but lots of other people as well. For example, Tobin at the CEA and the Joint Economic Committee of the Congress. So a big step forward in this regard was the establishment of the Special Studies section, which was
Jetzt kommt er aus
tasked
den
with
USA.
creating this large-scale econometric model, and that's when they kind of first brought in this kind of big team of what we would consider to be kind of modern research economists. They did things, in addition to the model, they were doing research. They had the first working paper series.
Wir haben immer noch keine abgeschlossene Viertelstundenkerze rot.
Culture spreading to the rest of the board, spreading out to the sections that had been previously primarily oriented towards current analysis. So you're seeing more research economists in those sections.
Was tönt das so?
Working paper series. So, and then, of course, kind of the fact that we were in this big battle against inflation, which Jeff will talk about in a few minutes, that just engendered more research, thinking about forecasting and so on. So this decade was characterized by Jerry Ensler and his oral
Ja, 49, immer noch kein Grund zu hatchen. Aber warten wir ab.
Then kind of subsequent decades, you see this ongoing trend towards more focus on research, and I think it's fair to say that a big milestone.
Ja, die US-Indizes kommen jetzt runter.
In 1987, those who remember working with him know that he just had this vast appetite for engaging with research economists on basically everything. So that was a big.
Wir kommen wieder mit den US-Indizes unter
to this day, as Stacy was saying, have just
Unter das Vortageshoch
rigorous economic thinking.
Dax
Gustavo will have the
kommt da noch nicht runter.
results that illustrate this. But there was this expansion of research staff,
Ja, ich muss mal schauen, ob ich
spawning
da...
new divisions. And this started with the establishment of IF from R&S in the 1950s, but then you have monetary affairs in 1987 and financial stability in the early 2010s. Partly
Ja, wieder
research was
US 500.
fostered by some pretty important innovations in terms, maybe we've already talked about this, in terms of computing here at the board. If you read the oral histories, that was a big deal. Of course, we have richer data sources. And then importantly, there's been
Ja,
these
Jones kommt
innovations that
runter.
have enhanced the
Dax
reach of research,
klebt.
which I think are quite important. You have the working papers consolidated into the Fed series, and you have the
Mann.
establishments of the very important Fed's Note series, which allows
Ja,
the
ich
public
muss
to see
hatchen.
kind of all this kind of rich analysis that is behind board deliberations. So that's your quick overview of history of research in RNS, and with that I'm going to turn things over to Gustavo, who's going to show some quantitative results.
Thank you so much, Karen. We look at many of the questions from a quantitative perspective as well. I'm going to need some help with the clicker. Okay, there you go. All right. And we were able to do this with great support from the research library and the excellent research assistance from Alec Earp, who I hope is in the audience here, or from the K Street. We focus on 3 questions. First, how much research is produced in RNS? Second, how is research produced? And how is research used? And we're going to give you a sample of some of the perspectives that we got into these questions. We are not aiming for being comprehensive or definitive in these answers, but rather to invite further conversation along these topics. We use primarily 2 types of data in this analysis. The first one is metadata on publications that has been collected by the research library of board staff. And metadata includes subjects like the title of the paper, the
Ist dann noch
URL
long
codes, the
gegangen.
authors,
Also catched.
and this is collected for a wide range of type of publications, including working papers, academic articles published in peer-reviewed journals, and other publications that very notably include Fed's Notes, of which we have heard.
Ja, die USA kommt schon runter.
In earlier days of this
Schon die
operation.
zweite 5-Minuten-Kerze, beide unter Vortageshoch.
We
Dax
focus
steigt noch, ich
mostly
gehe da
on
mal
the
langsam wieder
standard
raus mit den
1990s.
Longs.
And obviously it's very difficult to ensure that we're comprehensive of capturing all the publications of all the economists in all the years. We suspect that there is a slightly more tendency towards being comprehensive towards the later part of the sample, so some of the results need to be taken with a grain of salt. We supplemented the data we obtained from the research library by collecting the affiliation of external authors and other aspects of the data that
Oder
one
auf den anderen Bildschirm, ich muss mich jetzt völlig auf diesen Bildschirm
And the
konzentrieren.
big second source of data for us was the text in some FOMC publications, more notably Fed's, most notably FOMC transcripts and FOMC memos. And we also used the text in Fed's working paper starting in 1997. For us, it was very special to work with this data. So we actually understood the story behind a lot of the data points, because each paper in this database is actually a story. There is a story behind it. And let me turn to the first question, and to get a glimpse of the amount of research that is produced in RNS, we're plotting the number of new publications per year across the major publication types. We have here working papers, academic articles, and other publications. And all of these have increased over the past 25 years. We can explain some of the wiggles in this chart, some of the other wiggles we cannot explain. One that we wanted to share with you today is the significant increase in the mid 2010s in other publications, in the green line. So a lot of that increase owes to
Immer noch
the
gehatcht.
introduction and the consolidations of Fed's notes.
Steigen
It's
immer
a
noch.
very high demanded outlet. It has a wide reach, which makes it very appealing, and it also allows for a strengthening of the partnership between economists and research assistants, who in this product can work on the same lifespan of the paper as their tenure in the division. We looked at the increase in the number of publications a little bit deeper by decomposing the number of publications into the number of economists and the number of publications per economist. This is an oversimplification of the production function of research, which is very complex and has evolved over the years. Obviously, it includes the partnership of economists with research assistants. It includes data and technology, and we've heard a lot of the importance of those factors in earlier days of this week. However, this decomposition is insightful in that it shows that the increase in publications in RNS owes both to an increase in the number of economists and an increase in the number of publications per economist. Let me turn now to the next question about how is research produced. We looked at two angles of that question. The first angle is how is the research output distributed across economists? And for that purpose, we are plotting here the fraction of economists publishing in a given year. And this fraction used to be in the 30% range at the start of the sample in the late 1990s, and it has increased to levels approaching 60% towards the end of the sample. So there is a wider spread of the research output. And this speaks to
Ja, wir müssen aufpassen, jetzt gegen 16 Uhr kann das wieder runterkommen.
There used to be a few sections that did a lot of the research output, and that need and that mandate to conduct research and policy analysis has spread, and this is exactly what this chart is illustrating. Another dimension of how research is produced is by looking at the network of co-authors of RNS. And here we're looking at the external network, which is abstracting from the very important partnership of RNS economists with other divisions and other economists working in institutions. However, it's very illustrative because it allows us to use math.
So bin ich jetzt lang raus.
And on the left we have the earlier part of the sample.
Jetzt die nächste Viertelstundenkerze, die scheint jetzt rot zu werden.
That the network of co-authors has become denser and wider. So in the later part of the sample, there are more collaborations with places that were collaborating earlier in the sample in the US and across the Atlantic. And in later years,
Es hat erst eine angefangene rote Kerze, aber jetzt können wir vielleicht ein bisschen short gehen. Stoppsell.
This is likely not only something that is happening at the board, this is likely a reflection of a wider trend towards globalization of research and the emergence of research.
Momentan ist natürlich alles nur Historie, die erzählt wird. Das hat noch keinen Einfluss auf die Kurse. Ich denke, wir sind jetzt einfach zu hoch schon und wir sausen.
Particularly transcripts in the slides that we're going to discuss in a minute. And we're going to use a very crude proxy for the number of research references that are made in the FOMC documents by creating our own definition of what a research-related mention is. And essentially we are using variations of the word
runter, aber noch nicht so richtig.
Model, variations of the word study and paper. We're going to normalize the frequency of those words by the length of the document, because documents have evolved over time in that dimension. And that relative frequency with respect to the length of the document is what we're plotting in the bars in this chart, which is illustrating that research mentions have become more frequent over time. Obviously, some of those words may not reference economic research the way we understand it when we're writing an economic paper. So we wanted to understand a little more of the context in which those references were made. And to do that, we used the most common words in Fed's working papers. We classified the top 100 most frequent words in Fed's working papers, excluding grammatically common words like prepositions, for example. And we ended up with a list that sounds very much like things that an economist would do in writing an economic paper. For example, we have words like data, estimate, model. And we're trying to understand how frequent are these economic words around research references in FOMC documents. And that relative frequency is what we're plotting in the bars in this chart. So this chart, combined with the previous one, is suggesting that the output of economic analysis is becoming more important as an input into policy deliberations. But perhaps more than these abstract examples, these abstract charts, some examples are going to be honing this idea, and that's what Jeff has prepared for us. And with that, I turn to Jeff.
Well, good morning, everybody. I got to tell you, it's an incredible pleasure to be here. I'm going to make remarks that range from, and they'll be brief, but they range from computing battles in the Fed, which I remember fondly. Computing was
Hey,
ranging from that
bist
to
ruhig.
relationships. So let me start with the relationships. The reason I looked so forward to coming here today.
Ja, momentan alles nur noch nur historisch und arbeiten, überhaupt nichts Wirtschaftliches, Aktuelles. Jones steigt immer noch
It's to
höher.
see all of you folks who I met 40 years ago. I mean, in some cases, that means an awful lot to me. Maybe I'm just getting older, but these reunions mean an important. And look, the institution is nothing without you guys who have been here, who dedicated their lives to a public mission, who worked hard, and along the way had some fun, got to know each other, shared a bunch of stuff, whether it was computing or something else. So I just wanted to say
Jones
something about
steigt
that,
immer
because
noch
that
weiter.
really is
DXY fällt.
I'll get into the substance of the paper now, quickly. I do want to say that in the course, a related comment, in the course of researching this paper,
Völlig unklar, warum das jetzt so steigt. DXY fällt, das ist wahrscheinlich nur wegen
It was
DXY.
wonderful to bring back to life some folks who I had not seen in a long time, some of whom have left us. So Jerry Ensler, Ed Edman, Peter Tinsley. The list goes on and on. Those are folks who were my mentors, friends, pillars of the research community here, folks who are responsible for building up the research community into what it is today, in large part, not only them, other folks too. But that was a gift in a way, doing the research to put this paper together. It's just to come in contact again, indirectly, with these folks who are so pivotal, not just in my life, but I just can't stay away from it. Not just in my life, but in the lives of many people who lived and worked here. Okay, I'm not going to do everything on these slides, because you can read the paper. I know you have not all read it yet. I'm just making a safe bet there. But you can read it. This list is a list of some of, not all of, some of the really interesting episodes that we went through in the Fed in the last 50 or 60 years. What strikes me about this list is, for some sizable part of my career, we talked about the great moderation. I've completely forgotten that at this point. I don't know what that was, but it wasn't this. This is what we were doing. Yeah, there's computer stuff, there's inflation, there's the falling apart of monetary aggregates, there's productivity prop, how do we measure, do we know what it is, where's the trend? The zero lower bound looked like an interesting academic idea when we finally got inflation down, then it was much more than academic. The financial crisis, at this
Ja, es geht wieder drauf, scheiße.
we learned a lot, we found out things we didn't know. Just to say, just an almost unending sequence of challenges. And throughout that, RNS and other folks at the board here and at the Reserve Banks, I get compelled to speak up a little bit for the Reserve Bank. Other folks were in the thick of this in ways that I'll very quickly talk about. The big lessons here are just that throughout this institution's history, there's been a really healthy interplay between research, between policy, between developments in the economy, between measurement, how to measure the things that we're trying to understand, and what's going on in policy. And it goes both ways. We were sometimes staff here, we're leading the charge in terms of understanding how the economy works and how best to pursue monetary policy. In other cases, we were learning from folks outside about important developments in theory and empirics that helped us do our jobs better. That interplay is all over the place in some of the examples.
Jones, dat zit er toch op. Dat is 500 niet.
You know, obviously, you may have read about the rise in inflation, disinflation in the 70s, 80s. You may have read about this. It was kind of a big deal. What's interesting to me, so I went back to reread, I actually have a bound copy of this in my library, the Econometrics of Price Determination from 1970. This is a really interesting game. It really is. And the Fed is not the only participant there, but they're right in the thick of it. And in the midst of that discussion are concepts that are being wrestled with, and in the case of Bob Lucas, who contributed to the volume, put forward for more or less the first time, that grad students today are talking about, right? This is what we learned. This is what we thought was important. Well, that was real-time, real-world policy challenge and economic research interacting, and the Fed was in the thick of it there. Jerry Ensler was one of the contributors to that volume. Expectations. They've come a little ways. And not that I think we know everything we need to know about expectations just yet. But, you know, it used to be we kind of, there weren't really present in some models, and they were kind of there in this really ad hoc way, and that was discussed in this volume among others. And then we started to get more serious about it, and then we adopted rational expectations, kind of, except then, in my view, we found out that wasn't exactly the right way to do things all the time. That stuff was going on at the Fed, in RNS, all the time. It's great to go back and read the transcripts from the early 1980s, and Dave is in there in spades, trying to explain to the well, that's not quite fair, but trying to give the staff's perspective on how to think about inflation in the wake of that large disinflation episode. And I think the staff did actually pretty well in that case, using a model that I got there. I'm going to run out of time, right? Yep. But it's been fun. So I'll then just touch on the zero lower bound, and then we'll wrap up and move on and continue our discussion. There was a really interesting conference. I was part of the organizing team who worked on it. 1999 was in Woodstock, Vermont. And inflation had been coming down, looked like it might settle somewhere in the 2 to 2.5% range. And so we said, we should think about whether the zero lower bound might be a problem. That was a good idea to think about. Now, I had a paper with Brian Madigan, and then John and Dave Reichneider, and Athanasios and John had papers on zero lower bound. So to my eye, reading them now with hindsight, all those papers, including the one that I was involved in, were a little bit glib about both the likelihood that we hit the zero lower bound and the likelihood we'd run into serious problems. Well, certainly with hindsight, it's easy to say that. But the good news is, I think that work laid the foundation, the analytics, starting to think about policies we might pursue that did involve expectations explicitly to perhaps ease the zero lower bound to some extent by lowering real interest rates. That foundational work made it easier when, as it turned out, we were going to be living with the zero lower bound off and on for the next 20 years. That was really important foundational work. So proud to have been a part of that conference, but I think not just me, this was organized in part.
Stelle mal leise. Das ist alles nur so. Es wird über Forschungsprojekte gesprochen, nicht gerade über die momentane Situation. Vielleicht schauen wir, wenn da Powell selbst aufkreuzt, mal schauen, ob es dann Bewegung gibt. Ja, jetzt ist es so, dass Jones eine rote abgeschlossene Kerze gemacht hat, aber US 500 keine. Und was ist mit DXY? Ja, immer noch. DXY sinkt immer noch. Wir müssen da steigen, damit wir wieder kommen. Ja, Jones hat jetzt eine schon gedreht. US 500 ist am Drehen. DAX natürlich wie immer verzögert. Ja, bei Jones sehen wir hier diesen Triple Touch. Da hat John Roberts kommt jetzt Makroökonomie. Das sind einfach verschiedene Professoren, die über ihre Fächer sprechen. Ja, Jones jetzt mit der zweiten 5-Minuten-Kerze rot. Jetzt einfach mal erwarten, was Dax macht. Ja, jetzt kommen wir unter 80, jetzt kommen wir wieder runter. Es ist aber noch nicht gesagt, ob wir da wirklich schon drehen. Ich auf jeden Fall werfe da jetzt mal Short nach. Jones, ja, jetzt mit einem 15 immer noch grün. DI ist jetzt runtergekommen, also vom ADX DI minus DI plus. Ja, die rote Linie geht jetzt da hoffentlich über die gelbe. Ja, DXY hört auf zu fallen, konsolidiert. Schauen wir mal. US 30, ja, ist immer noch am Steigen wieder. US 500 ist eher am Fallen. Ja, Dax steigt wieder. Sind ja noch nicht richtig short. Wir warten immer noch auf die abgeschlossene 15-Minuten-Kerze, die rot ist. Jetzt kommt US 500 unter Vortageshoch. Jones ist am Vortageshoch abgeprallt, aber kommt jetzt auch wieder runter. Ja, ich glaube, wir können da mal bald mit einem Dreher rechnen. Die 16 Uhr Kerze rot. Ja, das ist also auch ohne diese Reden haben wir sehr oft, dass wir da bis 16 Uhr steigen, nachher wieder sinken. Schauen wir mal, ob da DAX wieder runterkommt. Und jetzt haben wir eigentlich eben gar keine Aussagen, das sind nur wissenschaftliche Präsentation von Papern. So, die erste Viertelstundenkerze rot bildet sich schön aus. Ja, da ist jetzt irgendwie eine Studie, die untersucht, wie viele Publikationen oder der Anstieg der Publikationen und wahrscheinlich dann auch der Anstieg des Wirrwarrs, weil da jeder seine eigene Meinung hat. Ja, jetzt US 500 deutlich unter Vortageshoch, kommt jetzt zum Pre-Day Close. Jones immer noch über Vortageshoch. Dax auch, also da muss ich natürlich die Take Profits runternehmen, gefälligst unter das Vortageshoch. Ja, ich denke jetzt, diese Bewegungen haben damit mit diesem Jubiläum an der Fed nichts zu tun. Aber der Anstieg, der hat sicher damit was zu tun. Da wurden die Kühe, die auf der Wiese der Hoffnung traden, in einen Long reingezogen und der wird jetzt wieder abverkauft. Ja, das machen wir da aber. Ob es noch weiter da abgeht oder ob es wieder reboundet. Ich bin schon wieder im Plan. Aber ich muss da Gewinnpositionen vielleicht einkassieren. Ja, warten wir mal ab. 59, 58. Nein, es geht weiter da ab. Das war eine völlige Übertreibung. Geil. Ja, ich bin jetzt auch plus 29, plus 27. Geil. Jetzt müssen wir dann schauen, ob der Chair Powell etwas sagt. Ja, ich glaube nicht, dass das der Powell ist. Ja, ich bin immer noch short. 54, 53. Steve Sharp kenne ich nicht. Ich weiß nicht, ob da zuletzt wirklich noch Paul selbst spricht. Ja, der 50er ist jetzt ein harter Support. Ja, ich gehe mal jetzt habe ich diejenigen, die schon im Plus sind, eingezogen. Ja, es geht da wieder ein bisschen rauf. Jones ist da an einer Unterstützung. Ja, wir haben bis jetzt halt im DAX noch keine abgeschlossene Viertelstundenkerze rot. Schauen wir mal, was Jones hier macht. Ja, wir sehen DXY wieder leicht am Steigen. Muss ich da hedgen? Ich bin jetzt mit wie viel noch? 0,8 drin. Ja, wir steigen da wieder leicht. Ich hedge jetzt ein bisschen. Ja, ich lösche da wieder die Longs. Oh Mann. Jetzt habe ich 141 und minus 21. Ah, bist ruhig. Hä? Bist du wieder drauf? Nein, das ist nicht der Paul. Ja, wir bauen ihm Jones seine Schulter, Kopfschulter. Ich denke, da werden wir jetzt am nächsten runterkommen. Ja, die US-Indizes kommen jetzt wieder runter. DXY am Steigen. Bin ich mit 1,1 Kontrakten short im DAX. Mal schauen, ob wir da weiter runterkommen. Ja, bis jetzt kein Paul auf der Bühne oder auf dem Podium. habe noch nicht gewusst, ich habe immer noch ein paar, die noch nicht ins Plus gegangen sind. Ja, jetzt kommen wir aber durch ab. Sell nochmal. Ja, Jones jetzt da bei 34.200. Aber der will wahrscheinlich drunter. Oh, pass ich auf. Ja, DXY schwach. Nein, US 500 fällt runter. DXY, da kommt nicht richtig rauf. Ja, ich habe da glaube ich den Future, oh, ich muss mal schauen, da von Axi-Trader da beim was habe ich jetzt da? Ich habe den DAX normal und den DAX Future. DAX sieht man keinen grossen Unterschied. Gut, US 500, ja, der kommt jetzt auch durch ab. Ich weiss jetzt nicht, was ich da beim Jones gesehen. Hundchen will raus. Also mal schauen, dass ich da mal bald beende. Aber jetzt kommt es schön runter. Aber ich glaube, dass eben diese Bewegungen haben momentan mit diesen Reden an der Harvard University nichts zu tun. Oh. Sharp Ratio, keine Ahnung, was das ist. Ah, ist das der, wo das herausgefunden hat? Jetzt steigt es wieder an, leicht. Ah. Nein, ich will einfach warten. Ja. Die US-Indizes gehen leichter auf, aber ich glaube, dass wir sehen das ganze Zeug runterkommen. Was der erzählt. Ich lese jetzt das einfach mal. Ja, US 500 kommt wieder runter. Jones steigt. DAX weiß jetzt nicht so richtig wohin. Ich weiß nicht, wir müssen noch mal kurz long gehen. Ja, ich mache mal einen Stopp bei. Ja, meine Stopp sind gar nicht ausgelöst worden. Ja, wir kommen runter. Jones macht jetzt die zweite rote Viertelstundenkerze auf. Ja. Ich gehe wieder mal schauen, was jetzt dann kommt. Oh, jetzt kommen die Question and Answers. Oh, da müssen wir aufpassen. Da wieder laut stellen.
Very good, Jeff. Thank you. The floor is open. People want to just put their hands up, and we have Don Cohn right here. And the microphone is coming.
Thank you, Doug, and great to be here. My mentors are so two factors that I think really contributed to the rise in research output, background factors. One was allowing more foreign-born non-citizen economists broader access to data, broader participation in the policy process. This was a fight, particularly through the 1990s, where the research directors really advocated for this with the board. And there was quite a bit of resistance from time to time, but I think it was critical to that,
Es kommt runter.
to the results we see.
Oh, hast du in Stopp-Loss reingelaufen? Das kann nicht sein.
1970s
Ah,
back
scheiße, das kann fast nicht sein.
is,
Es ist aber jetzt nicht mehr so hoch. Du bist ja noch short, gell? Oder bist du noch irgendwo long? Schaust
on the staff
ganz draussen.
and in publications.
Ja, dann machst du halt nochmal einen Stopp. Also es sieht jetzt nicht so ganz klar aus. Wie viel Plus bist du jetzt?
Piece of research
Ja,
that
das ist
was
gut.
contradicted
Aber es sollte ja
what particularly the chair of the Federal Reserve thought.
nein, du bist ja noch drin.
Ja, jetzt habe ich ja gerade
Gradually loosened. It's difficult to know from a communications process procedure. Sometimes people confuse everything that's published by the Fed as being Fed views, and it's not. But it really, I think, has contributed to the research, RNS, MA, and IF, to the understanding of policy and to research.
Ja, jetzt kommen wir unter den 50er. Ich werfe noch nach.
Thank you very much, Don. Any of the paper authors want to speak to that, or should we go on to the next question? I guess on behalf of the economists here, we should say thank you to the research directors who urged those changes and worked with the board to allow them to happen. So thank you.
Mal wieder ein bisschen eingezogen, was in Plus
Who
kommt.
else? Chris Carroll.
Well, I'm very much looking forward to reading the paper, and wanted to say thank you to the authors and the discussants. But I have one specific suggestion to you, to invoke the name of Athanasios Orphanidis, which Karen did earlier. He and I have had a lot of discussions about the history of the Fed and the the sort of internal thinking of the Fed. And I think it would be a great improvement over the availability of data for researching those kinds of questions. If the Fed would put some real effort into digitizing everything.
Kommen dann nicht unter den 89er.
Publicly available. I know there's the Alfred project.
Ein
I
bisschen
know
größer machen.
there are other,
Hier wichtig unter den 89er. Vielleicht zurück ans Vortageshoch.
Step might be to, maybe you're planning already to do this, but to make all of the memos and all of the other data that you used in constructing this paper available so that people can replicate your results. It's of course a big move in academia these days to have all results be replicable. And so if all of the results in this paper were replicable, I think that would be a great thing.
Thank you very much, Chris. Who else? Eileen Naskoff. You stood up, Eileen, and the microphone is coming, and then everybody can hear you.
So, in terms of the amount of research that we know of that went on in the 70s, I want to remind people that in those days, the number of journals in economics was very limited. We had the AER, the JPE, maybe the Journal of Money, Credit and Banking, I can't remember, but the opportunity to publish in an economics journal was quite limited. And recently, because we're close to Big World Cups, I went through some of the papers that were written in the 70s in my section and in special studies. And what I read just amazed me, partly because my memory is fading, but also partly because the memos that were written were of research quality. I found memos outline and
Ja, Paul selbst tritt wahrscheinlich gar nicht auf. Aber da sollte es dann ein bisschen schneller runterkommen. Es geht immer noch klebrig und es sollte immer noch ein paar Punkte runterkommen. Weil wir da mal noch mit Hundchens raus müssen oder mit dem Hundchen. Wir haben heute nur einen. Ja, wir kleben am 89er, wir müssen den 89er durchqueren. Wir sollten da nicht mehr über 50 kommen. Ja, jetzt wieder 51. Momentan wieder sehr träge. US 500 jetzt bei PDC. Jones immer noch über PDC. Ja, da würde ich schon fast gerne was über Nacht drin lassen. Wir sind da wahrscheinlich schon absolut aufgebläht. Ja. Hier natürlich wieder um eine Viertelstunde verzögert. Wir sind da ganz leicht in den Stop-Loss-Bereich reingekommen. Wir sehen da fast kein Volumen beim Anstieg. Also diese ganze Strecke habe ich jetzt nicht getradet. Und da würde ich fast drauf wetten, dass wir da wieder runterkommen. Ja, jetzt können wir wieder sellen, noch ein bisschen nachsellen. Jetzt damit 1.0 Short. Ja, da würde ich aber gerne, also bevor ich aufhöre, gerne mit 0,1 drin bleiben, wenigstens mal da bin ich fast sicher, dass wir da über Nacht, ja vielleicht jetzt schon wieder aufs PDH rankommen und alles wieder pulverisieren. Jetzt muss ich mal schauen, ob da irgendwas ob da mal noch Paul selbst erscheint. Ja, wir müssen da Geduld haben. Da bin ich jetzt mit 1.0 Short, aber wir sehen da, Jones fällt, aber DXY fällt halt auch. Wir kommen da langsam ins Plus. Ja, DXY fällt jetzt wieder und DAX steigt ein wenig an. Wichtig ist, wir sollten da unter 50 bleiben. Jetzt haben wir genau 50,20. Aber ich sehe das an Jones. Jones kommt runter. Jetzt mit der dritten, aber angefangenen Viertelstundenkerze. Ja, DXY fällt halt eben auch. Und US 500 stagniert im Fallen. Da gibt dem schnell noch das Goodie. Ich komme gerade wieder rauf. Oh, habe ich jetzt Handy? Ich will nicht mehr mit zu viel rein, wenn wir gleich mal da spazieren. Aber es kommt durch ab. Ich glaube schon, da kannst du nicht rechnen. Soll ich dir auch ein Hundegoodie bringen?
Nein, nicht das Hundegoodie, das Menschengoodie.
Gut, ich schau mal, was wir haben. Ja, ich warte jetzt ein bisschen, ich muss mal dem Hund ein Goodie bringen und wir müssen auch irgendwas essen. Ja, ich höre jetzt auf. Ich habe jetzt da nochmals geschortet. Das möchte ich jetzt einfach laufen lassen. Ich lasse das wirklich jetzt. Den Stop-Loss nehme ich raus. Und Take Profit hier. Ich denke, das müsste da noch weiter runterkommen. Aber eben ja, der Auftritt von Powell, das war eigentlich nix. Nein, wird nach der Pause weitergehen. Mal schauen, ob da noch irgendwas ist. Aber ich höre jetzt auf und verabschiede mich. Dann bis morgen. Ich habe 149,49 gemacht und lasse das jetzt einfach noch laufen. Also dann